Hollow Kingdom by Claire B. Dunkel. Book 1 of the Hollow Kingdom trilogy.
Starlight, Chapter 1. It's so nice to see new faces at Hollow Hill, isn't it, Prim? Gracious and white-haired, Celia Whittaker beamed across the dinner table at her great nieces, and Kate and Emily Winslow smiled shyly back. The girls were grateful to find a smile at the end of their journey. It had been a hard 2 months. Their father had died suddenly, by scrupulously legal tradition. His house and lands near Coventry now belonged to his nephew, the next male relative, and this man had refused to become their guardian. The Hollow Hill estate belonged to Kate from her late mother, but she had never visited it. It had been rented to another branch of family for generations. Now Kate and her younger sister were coming home to lands and relatives they had never seen. Hugh Roberts, a bachelor cousin of their mother's, had become their legal guardian, and the two great aunts, Celia and Prim, had agreed to raise the sisters. Excited and exhausted, Kate and Emily tried to eat their meal. They had arrived only minutes before. Days of bouncing along in that carriage, nervous and bored, had carried them from their father's tame green meadows to this remote country. Last night they had stayed in a little village on the shore of Hollow Lake. The innkeeper had pointed across the great oval lake to the forested hills beyond. A high bog prominently faced them on the other side, and cliffs and bluffs tumbled haphazardly down the smooth surfaces of the water. "That's Hollow Hill land, miss," he had said to Kate. "The tall rocks there, that's the hill itself. But it'll take you all morning to get around that lake and forest. No roads go through the woods by the hill. They'd not dare put a road there." My land, thought Kate in a surprise. She hadn't expected it to be so wild. "And what a beauty you are, my dear," Aunt Celia said to Kate. "You favor your mother, doesn't she, Prim? She was slender and small boned, too. Such a graceful woman. She had the pick of the men in her day." Kate tried to smile at these kind remarks, but she found them rather embarrassing. She didn't think of herself as a beauty, although she knew her mother had been one. In fact, Kate was uncommonly pretty. Her long blonde hair formed small curls around her face, and she had dignity and poise, unusual for her age. Perhaps this was because she had spent so much time with her father. The lonely gentleman had lavished hours each day on her education. He saw strength in her gentle nature that he openly admired, and this strength had carried the quiet Kate bravely through the last 2 months without him. Raw-boned and large-handed, Primrose Roberts didn't smile as often as her sister Celia, but this didn't mean she was ill-tempered. She studied the blushing Kate, noting her fair skin and large, dark blue eyes. "Now, you know Kate's mother was dark, Celia, with the black hair. I think you're like your mother's in your build, though. Such a little thing she was." Kate sighed. She hated being so short. No one but her father seemed to take her seriously. "I think you must favor your father, dear." Aunt Celia had turned to Emily. The younger sister frowned by way of answer. Thin and dark, Emily certainly possessed her sister's strength of will, but she didn't always use it quite as sensibly. Her narrow face was very expressive, and her conduct often unexpected. Lively, intelligent, and quite mature, she usually burst out with exactly the comment that summed up the situation beautifully, and therefore could never, in politeness, be said. It is true that she had her father's plain brown hair and brown eyes. It's also true that it is annoying to live with a rare beauty, if you yourself are not one. Emily thought she would have loved being a beauty and breaking men's hearts. Kate just didn't appreciate what she had. "Hollow means holly, doesn't it?" asked Emily. "Why is the place called Hollow Hill? Is there a church nearby?" "Oh, Hugh can tell you about that," Aunt Celia said. "Hugh's quite a scholar, you know. He's writing a book of family history, all about Hollow Hill." Their legal guardian was a large, corpulent bachelor with a round face and ink stains on his hands. Emily kept staring at him because he wore a curled white wig. No one but lawyers and godfathers wore wigs any more, except for the barest pleasantries. He had been silent since their arrival. He had brought a book to the table and was reading it as he ate, his spectacles resting on his low nose. Now he raised his pale face from the pages and glanced dismissively at Emily. "I don't suppose someone of your age and gender is going to sit through a linguistic analysis," he remarked. Kate saw her little sister's face darken and spoke quickly to prevent a catastrophe. "We'd love to hear about Hollow Hill's name," she protested with a bright smile. "Place, name, etymology, so fascinating. The words come out of Old English, don't they? So the names can't date back to Roman times, but it could certainly pertain to the Norman conquest." Hugh Roberts fixed Kate with a critical stare. She noted an ink stain on his nose and hoped her sister wouldn't mention it.
So, we've read a book or two, he commented dryly. Yes, the word hollow is Old English, but we don't know that hollow or holy is what we intended at all. Perhaps hollow is what was meant. Some early documents called the bald peak behind this house Hollow Hill, and there certainly are caves throughout this area, and Hollow Lake may just be a short way of saying the lake by Hollow Hill. However, we aren't even positive that is the original Hollow Hill. Near the lodge house is a small hill with a flat, circular crown, and around this is a double circular of ancient oak trees. The site was obviously an important Druidic center. There are those who said that is the real Hollow Hill, but probably to the early inhabitants this whole region was scarred. It has never been mined. The forests haven't even been logged, and the locals retain to this day a tremendous superstitious lore about the area. Calling something hollow for hundreds of years has a way of making people treat it as holy, whether it really is or not. He picked up his book again. It's fascinating human phenomena, the tenacious preservation of ignorance, he remarked caustically, and ignored the conversation around him for the remainder of the meal. In another half hour, Emily and Kate found themselves back out in the sunshine, facing another carriage ride. Their guardian lived in this large estate house, the Hall, but the girls were not to live here with him. They were to go on to the smaller house, the Lodge, where their great aunts lived. The Hall faced a large open green that was not in the least interesting. It continued rigidly geometric pebbled walks, square garden beds, and bench seats set primarily by the straight, tree-lined borders. But the ground to the sides and back of the house began rising at once into small, tumbled hills. And through the window of the dining room the girls had tantalizing views of a shady terrace, moss-covered rock walls, and paths disappearing into the dim forest that reached down and enclosed the hall on three sides.